Thank you so much, Scott, for coming on and having this chat with us, talking all things Lightworks and editing today. So if you could just, for the audience at home who may not know who you are, just give us a little 2-minute rundown of who are you, Scott? Who is this man I'm talking to right now?
Well, hello, my name is Scott Hill, a film editor. I have no idea who I am, but I can tell you a few things I've done. Out of film school, I went to film school at the University of Southern California, USC, here in Los Angeles. And out of that, through happenstance, I ended up cutting negative, and I had an office at Technicolor, and I was a negative cutter for way too long. Spent a lot of time there, but made my way into editorial eventually and started out as an assistant editor on the TV show Law and Order a long time ago, and was there a couple seasons, and then moved into features from there as an assistant editor. And I assisted a gentleman by the name of Don Zimmerman, a fantastic editor, wonderful guy. I was his first assistant for 8 years. And we did just so many movies and just loved them. Nutty Professor, Liar, Liar, Patch Adams, a number of films like that. I was to go on with him to do another film, Cat in the Hat, and that's when I got the opportunity to edit. Don had committed himself to Cat in the Hat, so he couldn't cut Bruce. And the director of Bruce Almighty, Tom Shadyac, who did Nutty Professor and Liar, Liar, Dragonfly, Patch Adams, Tom asked me to cut Bruce Almighty. So that was my move into the chair.
Wow. So was film editing the kind of place you always wanted? Was that always what you wanted to do? Was it just being involved in the filmmaking process? What was it that drew you specifically to editing?
I had directed a number of films in film school, and then had written, and I've written screenplays and whatnot. But editing, that just seemed to come more naturally to me. I would sit down and cut for other people. At film school, I would cut my own films. That just seems to come as second nature. That seemed to be where the real talent was. So,
and was that was a lot of the time, I'm guessing, with film, very like hands-on, or when you started in, like, especially in film school, like in school, as you were saying, was that?
Oh yeah, film school. We were 16 millimeter cutting on moviolas and all that. So yeah. And going from there and cutting on film.
Well, so when you were editing on film, was it short films you were mainly editing?
Yeah, I wasn't doing a lot of. I mean, I was an assistant. That was what I was doing. That's where I really started out. I mean, I was cutting on film, short films, little things, commercials. As an assistant, I mean, that's a full-time job.
So, and what does being an assistant consist of?
Anything the editor needs done. And that's something that some people had a tough time with. Even though I was my editor's first assistant, I would be the first one in the room, fire everything up, get the coffee brewing. So they're like, well, you're the first assistant, you know, your PA should be doing that. I'm the first one in the room. You do what you got to do. This whole hierarchy thing of, well, I don't do that because I'm now the first assistant. I'm not a second assistant. It's like, yeah, no, we do what needs to be done.
No, definitely. And then, so from that, you then, went into, so when you were working with Don Zimmerman, you were talking about, so you were an editor in there.
Yes.
What was a day-to-day, because you worked on him from quite a few films, what was like a day-to-day as an assistant with him like?
So a typical day, because at this point I was hired, Don had hired me because he had moved to Lightworks for the first time. It was on a film called A Walk in the Clouds with Keanu Reeves at 20th Century Fox. So he was cutting on Lightworks for the first time. He was coming off film. He was a chem editor through and through. That's his specialty. So I taught him how to cut on Lightworks. And then I was teaching a bunch of people on hiatus from Law and Order. I was for a company in Hollywood that was teaching a lot of editors. And I was one of their teachers during my off time. So I taught Don, and it was a great story. I finished teaching him how to cut on Lightworks, and he just turned to me and he said, "Have you made your deal yet?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he goes, "Well, I got this picture at 20th Century Fox. You need to talk to the head of post." I said, "Why?" And he goes, "Because you're coming with me." So that's why you're going to be my Lightworks assistant. So just make your deal, and we're off to. And we shot in Napa Valley. So he goes, "You've got 3 days. We're on a plane to Napa Valley in 3 days." So it's like, "Oh, okay, here we go." So a normal day, starting with the second day, you get dailies. We were shooting on film, so you get your dailies. We're syncing on film, screening dailies on film, and then I would go and get that all prepped for telecine. Then we'd get, at that time we were 3/4 inch tape, and I would digitize it into Lightworks and prep everything for him to be cutting. So I mean that's the normal routine, but essentially you're looking at a regular day. We were in maybe 8:30 in the morning to start, and then sometimes the lab would drop off film at 9. We'd be picking up the sound at 8:30. Syncing dailies, it'd be tough. Like Liar Liar were lunchtime dailies, so we had to have everything sunk by 1 o'clock, because then we were screening at 1. Everybody's coming in, director, producers, whomever, department heads are carrying their lunches in to the screening room, and we're looking at dailies at 1 o'clock. So a little tough. Those days were challenging because we would get, some days were 50,000 feet of film that morning. So we're syncing, if we had 40,000 feet, that's 40,000 foot rolls of film.
And how much does that translate into in time?
Well, 1,000 feet is 11 minutes and 7 seconds. So how does that work out? And that was a typical day. That's just a day's worth of dailies. And so the day would end by 7 o'clock or so. There's other times, if you shoot on film, we'd start the same time, but we wouldn't run dailies till after wrap. So if wrap was at 7 at night or 7:30, by the time everybody got to the screening room, we'd look at all the footage. Depending on how much the director wanted to see, we could be there till 11. So, wow. And that's a normal day. As an editorial on film, that was a normal day.
And I can imagine a lot of those films, the cast, Jim Carrey, Robin Williams with Patch Adams, you'd said, and things. I imagine those ones, especially because those performers are very dynamic. They do a lot of different takes, even I remember on Liar Liar, they have like the outtakes and and you just see how different every single take something can be. So I can imagine, for, more dramas, potentially, it's like they may have a lot of film to capture one moment and you're really only looking for a couple of bits, while with something like a Jim Carrey performance or a Robin Williams performance, you have we have 5 hours of great stuff.
Well, when you come up with a feature and your finished film is going to be maybe 7,000 feet long. Yeah. We're shooting 1,000,000 feet. That's your ratio. So
there's a lot of responsibility almost to show, to get all of those performances and that footage in the best way for a director or the main editor to kind of see. What kind of process do you go through to kind of show them, to give, here's 5 great takes of this scene, or here's the best. What is that the kind of thing that you would do? And what would be your process to get to that?
Well, for me, let's use Bruce Almighty as an example. So Jim Carrey, one of the hardest working guys I've ever run across. Jim's fabulous. We have one setup where it's the Maid of the Mist scene where he loses it on camera while he's doing his news broadcast. So there's a scene there. We're almost 100 takes. So, yeah. So you just start going through it, and I'll just start looking at everything. And this is always something that I have found important, even though most people are like, well, there's enough time in the day. But I want to see everything, because you never know which take has the gem, that piece of gold that you're looking for could be in take 43. So it's like, you've got to see them all. Some people don't look at all the footage. They just go to the last take and call it a day. You can't do that. You have to be more thorough than that. So I would go through them all. And then I just start whittling it down. It's like, oh, okay, well, now that one, I don't like that one as much. So that out. Another pass. There's another 10 fall away. Another pass, another 15 fall away. I'm starting to getting more and more specific about that's got a problem. That's got a problem. Okay, that's gone. And I would whittle it down and do a manageable select roll, and then make my selects from there. Fortunately, that one setup, by the way, was always hilarious. What was hilarious in the cutting room at the time was the director, Tom Shadyac. So he would look at stuff. I would put him. I taught him how to cut on Lightworks so he could cut a select roll. He would go into one of my assistants' rooms, and he would cut his own select roll because he knew it was 100 takes. So we would look at the scene. He'd give me some notes. Okay, let's do this and this. I'm going to go look at performances, and I'm going to make a select roll of stuff so I can see it. Well, first of all, after that scene, he came back in my room. 100 takes. You made me look at 100 takes. It's like, Tom, you shot it.
Oh, so just for the audience at home, what is a select roll? How would you define a select roll?
A select in this case is, let's say, that example of 100 takes for a shot, a setup. Tom's looking to pick his best. So if he wants to whittle it down to like the best 10 or 15, he'll just cut a roll of just those takes. So that's a select roll. Just whittling stuff down to the best of the bunch.
And then what happens to that select roll after it's been evaluated?
So he would make a select roll. He would make a select roll on my assistant's system, Lightworks. We're all networked. So he would come in, he goes, okay, I made the roll. My assistant would send it over into my room, on the computer. At that point, Lightworks had rooms. And then we'd look at it and we'd pull it up, and I'd look at the takes he chose. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty good. Those are great. Oh, by the way, I used this take for this line, and I used that take for this one. This line was this take, and he'd be like, oh, you mean I went through all that, and those are the takes you already have in the movie? I said, well, yeah.